Hey, it's Krista. Thanks for being here, showing up for yourself, and being curious today. On the Rewilding Humanity podcast, we explore the depths of what it means to be human and how to come back into wholeness, physically, mentally, spiritually. Virtual high five to all you truth seekers out there. Let's get into it. Hello, my friends. Welcome to episode 52 of the Rewilding Humanity podcast. Today, we are chatting with my now friend. I can call her friend. I absolutely adore her, Courtney Wren. She's just such a magical being. I'm really excited that you guys get to be introduced to her today and her work. Courtney has so many gifts. She is a medicine woman. She helps to create transformational experiences for people, merging science and spirituality to support leaders and visionaries, help rewire their nervous systems, and embody the new earth ways of everything from conscious family, relationship, and leadership. She does this through something called Somatic Therapy. We also talk about Relational Constellations and what that is, which is really cool. And she also works in the Shamanic Arts. Now, we're going to hear about Courtney's background in her healing journey, which is really cool. I didn't know this about her, but like as a child, she was just like super stressed out all the time. And she managed to heal herself working with somatics and is now just like one of the most grounded human beings. So you're going to get to hear that journey. And honestly, like, I'm kind of mad that I didn't learn about somatics earlier because I'm going to be diving into this personally over the next little bit because the transformations sound just absolutely incredible. And the experiences that you're going to hear about are pretty profound. So I think this modality of healing is something that a lot of people need right now. And we talk about this concept. So Courtney mentioned that our generation is so full of trauma right now. And I'm not sure where she got this number from, but she mentioned 98% ancestral trauma in our genome and how this has happened, how we've gotten to this place, like how our ancestors. I often hear people say like, I don't understand why everybody in this generation is so messed up. We dealt with wars and rape and all of these horrendous things for time immemorial. And nobody was stressed out. Nobody didn't have all of like the quote unquote trauma and whatever that people are complaining about these days. And we talk about that concept, and the way that Courtney explains it, I think is really, really interesting. She talks about something called functional freeze and kind of like the survival mode that our ancestors have dealt with. And we're in a period now where there's a little bit of unthawing that's happening and it's all coming to the surface. So if you're listening to this podcast, like, you're probably on a healing journey. Everybody that you know, or a lot of people that you know, are suffering with health conditions of some sort. And there's a lot of explanation in here for why this could be. It's wildly fascinating. We're also going to talk about how relationship is foundational to our well-being. So a lot of this is about nervous system, which is really interesting. And I noticed this definitely in myself and with my healing journey, these patterns that get stuck in the body, and that can be tough to release. And we can do that through breath work and things like that. But I think this modality is really, really potent, interesting. So really excited for you guys to get to learn about this and connect with Courtney. So without further ado, let's jump into this episode. Welcome, Courtney, to the Rewilding Humanity podcast. I'm so excited to be chatting with you today. How are you?
I'm so glad to be here. I'm good. It's a sunny day here in the valley, in the Silicon Valley, and just got my sweet I've got some sisters here in the house with my baby and another little baby, and they're all hanging out. So there's like community vibes. And then I get to come out here and talk with you and be in my Dharma. And talk about all the things that are juicy about rewilding and relationship and somatics. And yeah, it's good to be here.
Yay. Oh, I love that so much. I'm very excited to see you and Mike next week and experience the magic of the Kootenays again. I love it there so much. I love it there so much. How long have you guys been living there again?
I've lived here for 7 years and Mike's been here for 3.
Okay.
Yeah. And it just like, it's a really sacred place, like very, very wild.
Yeah.
We're living very close to nature and very abundant and held. And living in a valley is interesting because there's so much water, there's so much water, but yet, and we're in this like amazing strip of green, but all around us are these like huge mountains, it's this interesting, like you're cozied up in the middle of these like huge rocky structures that are tower over you. And it's a really neat way to be situated. And it really brings in where we live. There's a lot of really sweet community and creativity and a lot of really intentional parenting and new ways, like lots of back to the land and new ways of being with ourselves and with each other. And yeah, it's a really cool place. The first time I drove here, when I was introduced to the Winlaw area, and I drove over the bridge of the river I live beside now, I was just like, I felt like I had gone into the land of the hobbits, I was just like, where am I? Is this real? Yeah.
Where were you living before?
I was living north of Edmonton in St. Albert. I grew up in the prairies. Yeah.
Okay. That's a much different experience then. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So different. And I've been feeling the mountains for a long time. And there was this waiting, like, where? And that moment, I remember it driving over the river. And I was like, oh, this is it. I found it.
Yeah, the Kootenays are calling me very strongly right now too. I definitely feel a move coming there as well. You have like this feeling of just being like enveloped in nature. Like as soon as you take that little ferry and then you get onto the other side and you're driving on the highway, like it's just huge tall trees on either side and you're cocooned, is what it feels like. And it's just my nervous system is just like
That's me too. Every time I'd go over that ferry when I was in the process of moving here, everything I would just drop like just so deeply in. And it was just like, oh. And that was really a sign for me, that deep dropping in. And I remember the first time I drove it, I saw rainbows the whole way. Like I saw like something like 100 rainbows. And I was like, okay, this is a big sign.
Yeah, you think?
Yeah. There's magic here. Yeah.
That's beautiful. And then so I'm so curious about your guys' home because I've seen some videos of the outside of it and I'm like, oh my God, you guys live in a beautiful hobbit house. Like I can't even deal how into that beautiful home. You have like grass growing on the roof and like lavender. You did like a video sitting on your roof the other day and that little lavender like I almost died. Oh.
Yeah, we have a lavender roof and then a strawberry roof over the studio here. And, it's funny, this house, because I remember the first time I saw this house, it was several years ago. And I remember, that feeling where you come somewhere and I was just like, oh my gosh, if I could ever live in this house. And I remember that moment. And then fast forward a few years later, I'd just given birth and we were like, we really need to move out of this cabin. The cabin was beautiful, and then the people that built this house and this is their land, they're like, we'd love for you to come live here. And they welcomed us here. And so it was really meant to be. And it's really held us in a beautiful way. And one of the things I love, if we think of this theme of rewilding, one of the things I love about the Kootenays is these homes that have a unique character and they're built with such intention. This house was built over many years and with logs from the land. And it just has such a different soul when it's built in that way and it's built into the hill. And I just love that feeling of the intention.
Yeah, it's a much different energy than, say, a cookie cutter home in suburbia, similar to what I'm in right now. I'm in the middle of Kelowna. and I'm in a townhome attached to someone else's home, and all of my neighbors have the exact same home. And actually, I did luck out. I did meet the builder of this project, the person that I rent off of, her brother. She introduced me to him because she's like, I just feel like you guys have a lot in common. And he's actually really cool. And he's into something called something about like geometric architecture or something like that. So like he's really into like sacred geometry and like energy grid systems and all of this stuff. And I don't know how much of that he put into this project, but there definitely are considerations in here that I feel are cool for what it is. But he is working on some really neat projects where I was just like, ooh, I need to learn more about that. It was pretty interesting.
Yeah, the spaces we live in, it's interesting for me because like if I think of like my journey, right, of like unwinding from the world that I came from and then living here, it's funny when now I go into homes, and I wouldn't have ever been aware of this before, but now because I've lived in so many homes that are so natural and built to such natural materials, is like now I'm so much more aware of when I'm in more mainstream homes. I'm like, whoa, things are really made of like manufactured things, like just this awareness and like, oh, that changes the vibration so much, and just like so much awareness. I remember the first time living in a log home that was totally built, like everything was wood from the land. I was like, whoa, this house is alive. It was like such a different experience. And it's just neat to be like, wow, just deconstruct some of these things, because of course, where we come from, you know, historically, we would have been living in a much more natural sort of, be more like like a hut that's a part of the forest, right?
I was at my grandma's house yesterday, and for anybody listening, I did an interview with her. So she's on the podcast. Yeah, because I wanted to interview her. All my living grandparents, I'm hoping to interview about what it was like growing up. And oh gosh, I can't remember who she said now. If it was my great grandma, somebody in the family. God, my memory sometimes. They when they immigrated over from the Ukraine, they literally lived like they just dug holes in the side of like a hill and lived in that, you know. And I was like, oh, cool, we're like mud people.
Right. Earthy.
Yeah, because everyone was just so dirt poor. They lived off the land. That's all they had. And such a cool conversation just about like how they had nothing, but they were so happy and healthy, living off the land, 9+ people living in a 2-bedroom, like handmade structure, and butchering their own chickens. My great grandma used to make her own wool and clothing, and you know, like it was just very, very much from the earth.
Yeah, and that's the cool thing about living here is there's so many people doing these things, you know, like the midwife that, well, she's not a registered midwife, but the elder that delivered was there when I gave birth, you know, she spins her own wool, and, you know, it's like hand dyes it. Like there's so much of that going on here.
Oh, wow.
And there's something too, right, about having like a basket woven by, you know, so-and-so down the road. And then, oh, you get your eggs 2 doors down, and oh, there's the blanket that's woven from, it's just so like, it just adds these textures of soul and realness. And like, I just feel so nourished by that. Yeah.
I'm coming. I got a little bit of traveling to do here. And after that, I'm coming home to the Kootenays. It's just, it's calling me.
I'm excited. I'm excited to be here with you. And then also even to show you some local places, right, that you might not know about, or just some.
Oh, I would love that. Yay!
Yeah,
I'm so excited. So you alluded a little bit to kind of a beginning of your journey. I want to dive more into that and talk about potentially a healing journey that you've been on, but also how you got into your work. The theme of this podcast is relational healing in the nervous system. And I know there's lots of different methods, like you're into somatics, you're a medicine woman, you know, like there's all of these amazing things that you do. And I'd love to hear about that journey and how you came into all of these wonderful healing modalities.
Yeah. Well, when I was a little one, I was sort of really, I think so many people can relate with this. I was super sensitive, really tuned in. You know, the words that I now would use is I was totally like a crystalline kid, definitely in a new earth frequency. I sort of think of it like I arrived and I was like here for the new way, but then I'm in Mornville, Alberta in the 80s. And I'm like, what is going on here? And everyone else is like, you know, trying to get to know me. And they're like, what is going on here? You know, and I feel like there's a lot of people that can kind of relate with that, this in between place, like these bridges, us being bridges came in, right? And the way that that looked is, I was super in tune and aware and are able to articulate a lot. And, you know, I was carrying a lot of ancestral trauma and a lot of personal trauma from my birth and attachment trauma. And I had loving, beautiful parents, but they were carrying a lot of generational trauma, you know? And so what that looked like for me, how that manifested is that when I was a kid, I had severe anxiety. I had panic attacks. I actually ended up in the psychiatric system at a really young age. Yeah. And on medications. And so for me, like my healing journey started really young because of the crisis of how dysregulated my nervous system was. And, you know, I was the kid that was like diagnosed with ADHD and like these things. So I always think of it, there's these two threads, right? There was my nervous system and the dysregulation and the trauma there. And then there was my soul and my spirit, who was also embodying a lot of life energy and a lot of awareness, which also kept me from shutting down and kept me in a spirit in that journey. But as soon as I was like turned, I think it was when I was 20, I remember I really went deep inside and I was like, you know what, like, I'm going to heal this. Like, I just got really like, I don't care what I have to do. I'm going to heal this. And I could feel like the destiny that I was here for, but I could also feel there is going to be a lot of work to alchemize and work with what's here to get there. And so I just really dove in. And I was very lucky that I met a really amazing somatic therapist at the time who was, you know, one of these forerunners. Like she was in her 60s and, you know, she was kind of like the beginning somatic therapist who had been journeying this for a long time and was also learning the new neuroscience. And I just dove right in. And so I was simultaneously doing that while at the same time studying shamanism. And I just really devoted myself to that. And so I got my master's in social work as well, which I feel was a ground or like a place to move from. But really, before I had found somatics, I had tried so many things. Like through my teenage years, my mom had taken me for so many different healing things. And it wasn't until I met somatics that I was like, it started to touch that place in a way that was healing and completely transformative. And so I just fell in love with it. And I devoted myself to it throughout my 20s. And by the time I was at the end of my 20s, you know, I didn't have anxiety anymore. I was coming into so much health and so many of the like things that were, you know, unwell in my body, like whether it be like sciatic pain or, you know, having trouble sleeping, like these things that we all can have. What I found is as I worked with my nervous system, it all resolved. And I was coming into health, you know, a health that was a lot more resilient and strong and all of these things. And the thing that I found fascinating too is so many qualities that I had thought were like who I was, you know, like I always have cold hands and cold feet, or, you know, like just things like this, like, oh, I'm not a person that likes to eat a lot. Like I don't eat that much food, or just these different things. Oh, I'm always cold, or just qualities that I thought were just me. All of these things ended up resolving. And I started to come into a whole different experience of my humanness. And it really tuned me in to the wisdom of nature. And it also tuned me into how far from living in alignment with our nervous systems, our society has become. Yeah. And how much, like, you know, when you go through those big paradigm shifts and you start to look at the world different, just walking around and you're like, oh my God, we're all carrying all this trauma in our nervous systems. That's what's happening. When you start to really awaken to this, But then at the same time realizing, oh, and there's a way to heal, and it's actually coming back to the wisdom that lives in our bodies. And the cool thing for me was I sort of went through this ahead of where the big wave of somatic awareness happened. So by the time I was really like ready to put this into practice, people were just starting to talk about somatics. And so it meant that I've gotten to really be a forerunner in a lot of ways of it and teach it and offer it and work with it.
Wow. It's crazy that it hasn't been since I met you and your partner, Mike,
Yeah.
that I haven't heard very much about somatic stuff. And I'm just like, I'm so curious. I want to know how it works. Like, how do we repattern the body to come into health and wellness?
Yeah. Okay. It's interesting because the nervous system, like how it's been said, is like the nervous system is the foundation of all, because it's like the background pattern that's running in the background that will always, it will always take over our consciousness. It doesn't matter how, like our energy, our mind, like if the nervous system decides something's dangerous or something's, it's going to take over. That's how it's designed. It's our survival system. So basically how it's said is the health that we are in, where our lives is a reflection of where our nervous system is at. Because if our nervous system is in regulation and wellness, then that reverberates through all the layers into our mental, emotional, energetic. And so when we shift things on that foundational level, it really does change the whole system. Now, the thing with working with the nervous system is because it's so in the background, like most of the time, it's just way in the background, and and it is supposed to be that way. Like if we have a healthy nervous system, we're developing a nervous system when we're a baby and in our mom's womb and when we're children, so that by the time that we're adults and we don't need to think about it. We're just sort of in the experience of life. But in order to heal the nervous system, first, we have to develop the capacity to slow down enough to start to listen to it, to start to feel it, to start to notice the sensations. And so that's always the first step for people, is slowing down enough and learning how to listen. And, that looks like listening to sensations. It looks like noticing subtle shifts in the body. It looks like, I feel so excited about this thing, but when I really slow down and I feel deeply and I stop, actually there's a tension in my chest. Or, actually my heart's beating really fast. I wouldn't have even known that if I didn't take a lot of time to slow down and tune into the sensations. And so the journey is to really start to listen and learn how to listen. And then as we start to learn how to listen, we start to get to build a relationship with this amazing organism of nature, that has so much wisdom and so much information to guide us in a more integrated way. I heard Bush talking about this, and he said, our bodies are the supercomputer. Like they are the supercomputer because they're nature, right? And so what we're doing is in the nervous system, we're learning how to listen deeply. Now, the tricky part is when we have trauma, which we all do, it's like something like 98% of our genetics right now is ancestral trauma. And so we're carrying a lot in the body, which is why we've gotten disconnected from the body. Because often as we start to tune in, we start to notice, wow, I feel like shit.
Yeah.
I know I'm not noticing my body.
Yep.
Because there's this thing and there's this thing, and it's like, whoa, overwhelming. And so the journey is to start to learn how to come into the body and work with it in a way that we're working a piece at a time. We're building a relationship a piece at a time. And the other thing is we're actually learning how to bring more health into the body. So a really key one is to actually start to help the body notice the safety that's here now. That is different, because part of what the body's holding, right, is it's still in the experience of all the past traumas that have happened, and it's still reliving that inside. And so we want to start to bring the body into the here and now and start to orient it to the health and the wellness that is here now in a felt sense way.
Mhm.
And, that can be easier said than done, because the thing about trauma what it does is it wires our body to notice danger, or to notice what doesn't feel good, or to notice. And so we have to really do the work to start to build that muscle in our body of noticing health and wellness. But here's the thing, and this is where lots of people get stuck, is it's not enough to think about good things. It's not enough to just vision about good things. We really have to get into the felt sense in the body of the resource, of the goodness.
Yeah.
And then as we do that, as we bring the body more into health and safety, then naturally what starts to happen is it wants to release the trauma. It wants to release the fight or flight. And so it'll start to shake those energies out. But it has to know that it's in safety first. It has to come into enough of a felt sense of safety to know, okay, it's time to shake that flight energy out. It's time to shake that anger out. And this is sort of the rhythm of how we start to heal, is bring in enough safety, a felt sense of safety, create a life that has enough resource. And then now the trauma can move. And then that's sort of the rhythm of it. Now, one of the tricky things for all of us is we live in such a mental culture that, animals do this very naturally, and children do this very naturally. But in our culture, because we're so mental, a lot of the work is learning how to actually come back into trusting the body. Because for a lot of us, this happens lots in sessions. It's like the body's showing, hey, we need to go into this contraction and we need to work with this contraction. But the mind is like, nope, I'm going to breathe. I'm going to do a practice. I'm going to, I'm going to
save off the panic.
That's right. And because we have so much healing to do around coming back to trusting nature, we have a lot of healing to do around that. And that is both because of trauma and also because of, religious indoctrination over hundreds of years that really told us that the feminine, the body, the felt sense, the nature wasn't spiritual, that, the primal, that the feminine qualities aren't a part of the spiritual. And so there's a lot of collective unwinding around, that like rage that's in your chest, that's actually part of nature's plan. Like there's something there. You got to move towards that. There's wisdom there. And it's starting to rewire that in our own nervous systems, but with each other and collectively too.
Yeah, this is so powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it gets me really excited to dive into this work. Like, I would love to do this work with you. I know we've talked about it a little bit, but yeah, I'm definitely going to jump into this.
I'd love to do that with you.
Yeah. I'm really excited. Because like, as you're talking, I'm just thinking of my own experience. And I started at, I had this conversation about starting from deficit, coming into a womb that likely felt unsafe as a fetus. There was just a lot of toxicity. Like my mom smoked throughout her pregnancy and through breastfeeding. I was only breastfed for about like 3 months or so. And then just a lot of energetic trauma, and then tons of pharmaceuticals and all these other things that just like perpetrated a lot of pain, a lot of like illness and physical pain in my body, my whole entire life. And you get to a place where you don't trust your body. Like you're constantly getting sick. You think there's something wrong with you.
That's right.
And then you're told by the system that, yeah, you're broken and you're just going to have to be on all of these pharmaceuticals forever. And you're just depressed and you're just this and you're just this and this is how it is. And all we can do is give you a pill and there's nothing you can ever do to fix it. And it's taken me, I'm 38 now. I'm still at a point where I'm unwinding, but it's been slow and I'm working to trust the process, but it's still, I'm getting hit with symptoms a lot. I want to go into those a little bit more deeply and investigate, see what's there. But I haven't had these experiences, like maybe with breath work, right? Like I've definitely had some release with breath work. And it was interesting. I processed this the other day where I noticed that because there's been so much pain and so much trauma for so many years, the mind starts to do a really good job of just kind of disregarding it or burying it further, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And what I'm noticing is, because I just went through, like, I'm currently going through what most people would consider some pretty heavy stuff, just in terms of big changes and things like that in my life. And mentally, I'm just like, yeah, this is fine. Like I go through stuff all the time and whatever.
Yeah.
But I've been having a lot of aches and pains come up in my hips and in my neck, and a lot of big headaches and things like that. And normally I would be frustrated and reaching for Advil or something, back in the day. I'm like, no, what's happening here is that the body is trying to process it, right? Like that experience doesn't go away. It's still there. And
Yeah.
even though I may be okay mentally, I've been through a lot of tough stuff, I can let things roll off my back. In that sense, it's still there and it's processing somehow. And I'm struggling to figure out how to release it. And I've been stuck with this pain, like I'm stretching, breathing and that sort of stuff, but I'm not releasing it the way that I would like to. And so what you're describing to me is just like, holy shit, I can see how this would be so potent for so many people.
This is why I'm so passionate about it, because, I've lived it. I went from literally, like, I didn't have a choice when I was 20 years old, when everybody else was like going traveling, and it was either I like deal with this or I'm going to be really unwell, like really, really, really unwell.
Yeah.
And I journeyed from a nervous system that was so complex. I still am amazed when people are like, yeah, like I get so many reflections, like, you're so grounded, you're so calm. I'm like, whoa, like my inner consciousness is like, that is not something that I would have ever thought. Right.
Wow.
But it's so important what you're saying here. And I just really want to pause. Yeah. Can I speak to your journey just with like a two pieces there? Thank you for sharing it. One layer there for me when I'm hearing you is two things, actually. So one is when our nervous system has basically learned from a very young age, and this is the thing, is these things get patterned in when we're very young. If our nervous system has learned, okay, I can't actually move this trauma energy, it finds ways to create freeze or shut down. And then what happens is we get to the point where there's so many layers of freeze and shut down that then we start to move towards, and we're like, okay, I want this to move. But the nervous system is sort of like stuck in all these different holding patterns. And now it's not sure how to release. Like that's sort of what happens. And then this is where we need someone to come in who understands this about the nervous system and can bring in an attuned connection. You need another nervous system to come in and show your nervous system how to do it. And this is where the relational comes in to healing. And, when we think of how our nervous system develops, and I always think this is so beautiful, because if we think of as souls, it's like, yeah, we're all connected and we know this. And then we come into these bodies and suddenly, we're having this new experience of what is it to be a body. And how I see this is that we're learning about unity in a body, and what unity in a body looks like is co-regulation. It's meeting other nervous systems. It's meeting your mom's nervous system and your dad's, like the animal, it's meeting the animal. Now, if in that there's the vulnerability, because when we land in these bodies, we rely on their nervous systems to teach us how to function. So it's not like we're handed a perfectly functioning body. It actually wires over the first, from conception to 2 years old. It's wiring, it's forming in relation, which I just think is stunningly beautiful, because that just feels to me like that is embodied, unity. It's like the embodied connection. But what can be the conundrum in that is if the information we're getting is life is really scary, there isn't resource and lots of terror and built up ancestral trauma, then what happens is that's what gets inlaid. And the only way to unwind that is we need to be met relationally. We need to be met relationally in those places in the nervous system with attunement, because that's what the body's looking for. It's looking for another nervous system because that's how it's designed to do it. And one of the things that is really unfortunate in our culture is we live in such a hyper independent culture where we're really given this belief that, if we go out and meditate, if we go off and just do things in ourselves, then we will heal. And we're really taught that. But what that is preventing is preventing that deeper healing in the relational field that can happen. And it keeps people on that kind of like hamster wheel of doing a lot of self-growth and working on things, but it's not getting to that deeper place because our culture is having to relearn how much we actually need each other and how social our nervous systems are.
Yeah.
Like our nervous systems are very social. That's for most of the time that our bodies developed. It was in very close proximity, living with many people with lots of touch and interaction. And so if we even just think of the trauma of that, of how isolated we've become, that's very confusing for the nervous system because then it's not able to move through the natural healing that it wants to do. And so this is a really important piece to anyone who's listening is, so much of that deeper healing is being able to move towards the relational spaces. And this is key, right? Where those pieces can actually be held in an attuned way. Because when we're unwinding early material, it is delicate, it is vulnerable, it is something that needs to be held in a certain way in order for there to be enough safety for it to unwind. And the amazing thing is that we are such adaptable beings that when we're met with that, like the healing that can happen is immense and amazing and astounding,
Yeah. Just brings me back to this theme of embodiment that I feel is going to be such a huge teaching over the next few years. We come from Earth, right? Like, I think so many of us have these notions of, being a starseed or something. And there's been a lot of information and people getting really excited, learning about spirit, right? Like spiritual beings having a human incarnation. We've come into this incarnation with a lot of trauma. And so we're wanting to escape and be, like, get me out of this trash planet, take me back to my home family, like there's all of this narrative that happens. And I think the learning now is really to understand that in this body, in this incarnation, we are Earth, like this is our mother, right?
Yes.
And yes, there may be other levels on spiritual realm or whatever, but that's not what we're here to learn and experience in this lifetime. So when we're reaching all the time for this other experience of separation or not wanting to be here, that creates further trauma, right? And we're not able to heal by coming within the body and releasing all of these knots and things that are there and the healing that is available through the technology of these. Because when we look at everything else in nature, we can be in complete awe, but we have such a hard time seeing that within ourselves because we are nature. We are like, it is very advanced technology that we're dealing with here, and we're just figuring it out.
Oh, I get so many chills when you say it. It's like, yes, 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 yes. And the piece that you were speaking to in your journey, and I want to say this to anybody who's at this place, the hard part in the somatic journey is there is a chunk of time where we feel like we're doing it, but we're not getting anywhere. I've walked this journey with enough amazing people to know this. There's this chunk of time where you're literally just like, okay, symptom, okay. Like just like unwinding. But there really is, like, you are doing something if you're meeting it in a right way with co-regulation. And sometimes we can be spinning though, and this is where we need the right support. But as we move through that, there's a place where our nervous system hits a point where enough coherence starts to come in. And then that's where the wisdom of the body can start to like really take over. And the more coherence that comes in, the more suddenly you start to get to just rest in and really allow the nervous system to do its beautiful work. This idea that, our ego is something that we have to constantly keep in check or work with. What my experience is and the ego is the nervous system. And when our nervous system is in health, it isn't something we have to battle with. It's something that is our greatest ally. But when it's holding trauma, that's when we're having to do a lot of managing and controlling it and having practices to try to, and it's not that those things aren't helpful, but I think it's important to understand that's just a part of the journey. That's not where we're going. Where we're going is that our nervous system is actually our closest communion with nature. Our nervous system is our closest communion with Mother Earth, and it's our greatest ally. I have found this so much as a mother because I was so lucky to have done so much nervous system healing and then become a mother, because so many of the things that I see mothers struggling with, it's not that I don't bump into those things, but because I can listen to my nervous system knows the answer. And there's enough coherence that I can hear it, and it's got a healthy impulse. So it's like, oh, right, that's the inner mother, But if I had rewound 10 years ago and had a baby then, I would have been having to do mothering from a very mental place because my nervous system was in such a shut down place that I would have had to be making myself as opposed to, oh, my body knows exactly what's needed here. Oh, in the somatic world, we talk about it as bottom up versus top down. It's like the wisdom really coming from the bottom, from the body, from the earth. And then our mind is actually the last one to get the memo, as opposed to learning things from up here. And then we're trying to enforce it on our body.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And that can also support, I would imagine, intuition, right? And development of intuition, right? So becoming more sensitive to, if you want spirit message or whatever that is, right? When you're feeling safe within your body and you're able to listen to body. So this is something that I'm working with right now. I'm currently in mystery school and working on opening up intuitive gifts. And the way that it's been described to me is that soul speaks through the body. And right now I'm really working on trying to feel sensation within body, right? So listening to intuition and what is my yes today? What is my no today? And I'm really struggling with it because I feel of all of these layers of the pain and the trauma and all that. So we are working with it energetically, but I feel like doing this type of work can really help to release all of that to become more sensitive and actually be able to feel those more subtle impulses and things. Because a lot of times it's I'm trying to listen, but I have this nagging headache or my hips are hurt and I'm just, so it's more information that is just distorting what I'm really trying to feel into.
And that is what everybody I work with, in my containers, I have different ways I work with this, but in the containers where we're really specifically working with one-on-one with your nervous system, what I consistently hear from people is, oh, I'm just so much more able to navigate from inside of myself and way better able to differentiate, is that layer trauma or is that my intuition? Because the other thing that's really tricky when we're working with, and gosh, I've done this so many times, where we say, follow your heart. Oh man, my heart has led me into some really not great stuff. Because it turns out my heart was tangled up with a whole bunch of trauma in there, And so, oh, that wasn't my heart. That's my heart distorted by a bunch of trauma.
Yeah.
Getting better at being able to differentiate inside the different layers of oh, okay, right. My body opens when I think of that. But when I really start to weed through it, it's oh, I'm dissociated. And getting better at feeling the subtleties and getting to know the subtleties so that we can really start to build that deeper reservoir of coherence and that capacity to listen. And so I think what you're saying there is so key because that was a huge part of my real awakening and my journey was when I realized, oh, the wiring, what we don't realize is the wiring is so strong in the primal part of our nervous system that what our minds will do is we'll feel a sensation and our minds will start to make a story about what that sensation means. But our mind isn't actually able to do that because it's trying to like piece together, like, well, I have this feeling and this thing happened, and so it must mean this. And what happens in that is we start to act on things from a way that our mind's just trying to make sense. But what's cool is when we come in from the body, which is beautiful, that this is in the mystery school. And this is where I've loved shamanism. And because there's this ancient wisdom that knows this, right? But when we come from inside, there's a meaning making that happens that's not mental. It's almost like the body tells the story to the mind. And suddenly the mind is getting a story that it never would have even fathomed was what was there. And I feel like these mystery schools know this. This is in so much ancient, in the ancient Egyptian and like all, it's like they're really speaking to this. But in our culture, part of what is feeling sticky about it is needing that relational piece, that relational field to help it to unwind. Because of course, in a lot of this ancient cultures, they were having a lot more community and closeness. And there was an understanding about co-regulation. I think of in Peru, where so many of these ceremonies and different things are coming from. When you're there, they do live such a communal way of living that they don't have the same kinds of traumas that we have here, right? And right away, many people are taken from their mother and put in a bassinet, or we're in the hospital. Like there's so many layers of these pieces. And this is where we're having to kind of piece together, like there's all this amazing spiritual wisdom and knowledge, but we also need to do the work of what's the particular trauma that we as a people are holding right now that maybe they didn't at other times in this way.
Yeah. I wonder about that because it's like, at no time in human history has it really been that awesome. Like there might be some periods, but it's been like war, rape, slavery, like shit has been fucked up for like always on this realm, So I'm wondering, so you had mentioned, and I want to quote this correctly, you mentioned something about our generation being like 98%, was it ancestral trauma? Was that what you said?
Yeah. In our genome, it's like 98% of the way that it's expressing is trauma.
This is wild. And what are your thoughts on why this is happening now? Because like I see it everywhere. Everybody's got autoimmune, everybody's got, and a lot of it is, we're talking about our food systems and toxicity and all of this sort of stuff. But is it just because the first time, at least in Western society, women have like a little bit of time to exhale and not be slaves? And so now we're feeling like, what do you think it is?
How I see this, and I know it's different than how lots of people see it, but I actually see it, and this is from my knowledge of the nervous system and my own journey, like that 98% is not from all of history. It's from all the things you just named. It's like wars and that it's coming from all of that trauma. And how I see this is we're actually getting to a place where some of us on the planet are actually in enough safety that now our nervous systems are unthawing and coming out of dissociation. And so we're even aware of what's there. So how I see autoimmune or these different things is it's actually the nervous system starting to say, okay, there's enough resource that we can actually start to heal. And what happens with healing? Symptoms show up. What's really fascinating? If there is not the resources for healing and there's not the support in the field for healing, we will go into functional freeze, which is what many of our most recent ancestors were in. And what that looks like is they are functioning, they look well, but it's just the nervous system in a state of survival to stay alive. It's not for like deeper wellness. It's not for deeper communion and opening. It's for survival. And so often I think what can be confusing is in some of the previous generations where they're like, well, I don't have anxiety. Well, I didn't have those things. But when we really look, there's a lot of numbness and there's a lot of disconnection.
Totally.
And I would say in our generation, we are noticing more. We're aware, like, wait a minute, I feel terrible. Well, wait a minute, I don't think, and so how I see this is that it's the collective nervous system coming into a new level of safety, and it's saying it's time to heal and it's time to work with these pieces, which for me, I think it's beautiful. It's like, yay, okay, like it's time, it's happening. It means it's a lot of work. And I think what can happen is people can internalize it like, well, I'm the unwell one. But what I love about ancestral work is we look at, well, no, it's that all of these generational pieces are just now coming into your awareness for you to do the sacred work of unwinding it. And in my journey, I've gone through different layers of being pretty mad about that.
Yeah, totally.
And, like, and, now I notice authentically in my body, there's more of a sense of gratitude of, whoa, I got to be the person in the unfolding of my lineage who actually gets to experience like a greater sense of health. And it's been a lot of work and like, whoa, like that is really, really special. Like that flip of both of those pieces. What the heck? I got handed this huge.
Yes. Yeah. That's what it still feels like for me,
Yeah.
This whole journey and the podcast talking about wellness, all of these things, I'm doing all the things and yes, incrementally getting better, but I'm like, fuck, like I'm done. I want to feel good.
And this is where I would say two things about that. One is the more resilience we build in the nervous system, it's not that we're not still doing the work, but we can have a bigger reservoir of resource inside so it doesn't feel so big and heavy, if that makes sense. It's like there's a bigger well of resource that can be with the work. And then the other thing is just like, there is a period of time where we're unwinding hundreds of years of trauma. It's a big journey. In the constellation work that I do, we have this way where we look at generationally, like 7 generations before and then 7 generations after. And it's really fascinating to track as I do this with different people and different lineages, sort of the collective theme. And what I've noticed is there's certain generations up the line where there's more trauma and more numbness and frozenness. And then in the generation that are coming, I think it was 4 generations down, they started to be like, ooh, it's starting to get good. Like something starts to really come in that is like a whole new level of health. And that each generation after progressively really coming into more and more of a felt sense of goodness. And how I see it is our generation right here is we're these bridges. And when I was in Peru with the medicine man Puma, and it was the day before the lockdown due to COVID, and we ended up getting quarantined in Peru. And
wait, did you just say Puma?
Yeah, Puma. Do you know Puma?
I know Puma.
Yeah. Oh, sweet. Okay, yeah. Yeah, I was at a sacred temple with him right in the middle of all of that. And he said, this was his perspective. He said, we are the bridges between the lowest point of humanity, meaning the lowest energy, the most trauma, like piled up. And then we're the bridge that's moving into the new hummingbird frequencies, and so it's like, it's a big thing to be that bridge, it's a big thing, but also like, yay, we get to be the bridge.
Yeah, delight. But yes, like once you start feeling better, and it really is, and to have that realization, I mean, it can be a long process.
Yes.
But it does provide a lot of richness.
Yeah.
It really does.
And I guess the last little piece there, and I said it, but what I love about somatic therapy is there is a way, though, to infill more resource so that it doesn't feel so heavy, so that we can be on the journey, but it's not dragging us down. And there is totally a way to do that. And that feels key because it's like, how do we still feel good? Orient to the health and the goodness. Yeah. Now I'm curious, how do you know Puma? Were you in Peru with him?
I was, yeah. So I didn't do a medicine journey with him, but I traveled to South America, oh gosh, maybe 12 years ago. And we did a trip with him. My friend had lived in Peru and had somehow connected with him. I can't remember exactly, but we were with him for over a week and he was just such an absolute gem. Like I've never seen such a happy human being in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And then we connected again. I was the creative director for a company called the Shift Network, and they do a lot of programs and stuff around spirituality and all of these things. And they work with Puma. So I connected with him again there. And I was actually going to go on a trip to see him with the company last year, but it didn't work out. But as you just mentioned him, I'm like, oh, on this journey that I'm about to embark on, I need to go see Puma.
Yeah.
I need to go see him. I think after Guatemala, I need to go see Puma. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's so cool. We'll talk about that next week, actually, for sure. Okay, well, we're getting close to the end of our time here, and I have one last question for you. Who are the type of people that you generally work with?
Thanks. My specialty is I'm really good at working with people who have already done a lot of work. They've been on this journey for a long time. They know the pattern. They see that what's there. And they're the person who, is a leader. They're creating a lot. Maybe they are parents. Maybe they want to be parents. They want to step into conscious relationship, but really someone who is already embodying leadership and healing. And there's those core patterns, those core things in the nervous system that are just not shifting. And they're just keep cycling and they're working at it, but it's not shifting. This is my expertise. This is where I come in. I'm really good at that deep core repatterning, working with the ancestral material, working with the relational, and helping people really move through those really root imprints is the word that I would use. And I love about that work is that we have to, first of all, be someone who is resourced enough to even be able to do that work. So, it means we can because they're ready. The other thing is that the ripples of what can happen. I've worked with so many amazing leaders, and it's so cool when they're now in their body more, they're more regulated, they're more integrated, and then they go do their thing. It's the ripples of that. And then the way that they can start to educate people in their world about oh yeah, that's your nervous system. And they can start to the awakening of how we start to bring each other down and in more is just even having that awareness, Yeah. Yeah. So that's who I love to work with.
So for anybody listening who has heard this conversation and is like, oh my God, need to learn more, need to work with you, how can they get in contact?
Yeah, I've got my website and then also my Instagram there. So reach out. You can DM me on Instagram or go on my website and see the different offerings that I have. I am a mama, and so I have sort of certain ways that I work with people. Definitely right now I have my container offerings where I work one-on-one. And then I also have deeper containers, group containers. I love working with somatics and group containers. So I offer constellations experiences where we work with the ancestral field. I also offer ceremonial somatic process spaces where we do repatterning in small, intimate groups. And then I also have a membership, something that is educational and also practice focused that we do. We meet each month and work with this because it's the different layers. We need the information and then we need the actual felt sense experience. So I'm sort of weaving that together. Oh yeah. And then the biggest thing, I encourage you, if this is probably your next step, is my partner, Mike, and I have a podcast called the Together Podcast, and it's on conscious relationship and parenting. And we both are in love with somatics. So somatics and repatterning is woven through there. And the cool thing about this podcast is because we're in intimate relationship, we should do a lot of intimate sharing about the imprints that are coming up, but also how we're working with it. And so what you'll find tuning into the podcast is it really gives you a felt sense of what this work looks like and feels like. and lots of tools and lots of laughter and rawness and all of it.
It's such a good podcast, you guys. I highly, highly recommend for anybody listening who isn't aware. Mike, Courtney's partner, was on the podcast as well. He's a few episodes back. I think he is the last episode of the first season when this was the Wild Remedies podcast. So make sure you check that one out as well. We talk about men's work and we do get into somatics a little bit, but I wanted to save all of that for this episode.
Yeah, it's sweet to be here. Me and Mike just met Krista at the hot springs, Halfway River Hot Springs. And I remember you walking in and I was like, whoa, who is she? Because you were dressed so like just your style. I was like, I really like her energy. And then of course, there we go. We like have all these people in common and such a sacred spot to meet too.
It is. And hopefully we'll be meeting there again next week.
Yes. Thanks for letting me just really get so I'm passionate about this.
Oh, it's beautiful. I mean, your energy, I just feel this work so well and it feels very safe. I'm really looking forward to working with you directly.
Oh, I would love that.
Because to me, my intuition, my body is just yes, this is safety right here. This is what everyone needs. So thank you so much for all the work that you've done because I know how hard it is.
To be a warrior.
Literally. Yes.
Yeah. You have to be a warrior.
You do.
Yeah. I see you, sister. I feel you. It's you too. Thank you for everything you're bringing.
Awesome. Well, everyone listening, make sure you share this podcast with somebody that you feel could use this message as well. And we will catch you all on the next episode. Big love as always for being here today. I appreciate you so much supporting this project. Here's to truth, unity, the mystical, and the magical. If you want to connect more, hit me up on the gram at magic, magick.maven. I'm a lover and maker of herbal potions, beautiful environments, brands, adventures, and wildcrafts. So if that's something that lights you up, I am always up for some wacky adventure and would love to connect with you there. If you feel called to share this episode, please do. This is a passion project. I'm not doing any sponsorship at this time, so it would mean the world. Thanks again, and see you on the next episode.